My little buddy. This is Baxter. Baxter is training to be a therapy dog, so I'm trying to expose him to all kinds of things, including video screens. And he's a big baby. He's a mama's boy, so I'm going to put him right in his bed right next to me. So is it okay if I share my screen with the presentation, Azora? Yeah. Okay, let me just find her out. Okay. I think it's this one. Let's give it a try. Share screen. I hate when I'm not very good at this stuff. Let me just hold on. I apologize, guys. I am not the best at this, and it's not coming up for some reason. Hold on. Virtual wellness. Here we go. Try again. Start slideshow. Oh, dear me.
Maria, if we have your slides, we can put them on our screens if it's easier.
I honestly, I misread the instructions, and so I did two different versions of this.
Oh, no problem.
I apologize. I will get this to work. I promise you. It's
Take your time. No problem, Maria.
There you go. Is it working now? Do you see it?
We can't see it just yet. Maybe there's another button just to press there that says share screen. You can probably see it on your screen, but we can't quite see it on ours just yet.
All right. I can't. This is not.
Oh, look, don't worry. Take a deep breath. You'll be there.
Andrea got me all excited with all that Italian music I was singing. Good thing you guys didn't hear that. Hold on. I'm going to have to take a course in Zoom, I swear. Oh my word, what is wrong with this computer?
Oh, look, don't worry. Let's look at an option here.
I can't even get you to go full screen anymore. I can't even get you on my full.
Okay.
Maria, I have the version you sent me this morning. Would you like me to share that?
Yeah, go ahead, hon. But I can't even open you guys up so that I can actually see the screen myself.
Oh dear.
Oh. Here we go. I think I got it. I think I got it. Share.
Perfect.
Yay!
Good job.
Oh, Lord. I'm as red as can be. My face is burning right now. Okay.
Oh, don't worry. Thank you.
Are we good? All right.
Good.
So thank you for having me. I get to speak about healthcare and healthcare consent and advanced care planning. And I kind of split the presentation up into two different little segments so that we have a chance to have some questions after the healthcare consent piece, and then we'll do advanced care planning, and then I'll still be able to answer some questions around that. So I have family that are lawyers, so disclaimer, this presentation has legal information, but it is for educational purposes only. So when we talk about healthcare consent, we're talking about questions like, how do you go about making decisions for your healthcare treatment? Who decides what treatments you can and cannot get? And what if I'm not able to make a decision about my own healthcare? The Healthcare Consent Act answers those questions and more about decisions around health. So as a capable person, you have the right to give consent, and that consent has to be informed. And we'll talk a little bit about informed consent in a few seconds. But if you're capable of making decisions, you have that right to make a decision on your own behalf. Your consent has to be related to the treatment that they're offering you. It has to be informed. It has to be given voluntarily. And it can't be given through misrepresentation or fraud. The only time healthcare does not require consent is in an emergency situation. So for example, you are in an accident and PMS or EMS comes out and is trying to save life or limb. They're not going to stop and say, oh, by the way, do we have your consent to treat you? They're just going to do what they can, get you to the hospital, stabilize you, and then they will find someone, either yourself or someone else, to give you consent. I'm just not so sure what that was, but it said start my video. Did that make sense? I don't know. Sorry, loves.
Do you have a video embedded there, Maria?
No, not really. Not so
Okay.
sure. I don't know why
That-
that happened.
Okay.
Oh, Lord. This was supposed to go very, very smoothly. I know
Don't
that,
worry.
but
Don't
it is
worry.
not doing that.
If it's easier, Maria, for you just to focus on the slides and the presenting, someone can share her screen and you can just
Let's
let
do that. Let's
someone
just do
know
that.
to move the slides on. Thank you, someone.
Thank you. And I apologize, you guys.
Not at all. We're just pleased to have you. Thank you so much. Someone, you're good?
Is she there?
Oh,
She
I'm
is
just
in.
pulling them up right now. I have the PDF version, so I will do my best.
Is it still there? Can you see the screen?
We can see
Yeah,
your
we can
screen,
see
but
the
it's a
screen.
smaller screen. It's just
Oh,
If
this
you
side
go
is
to slideshow and hit present again, we can go through it.
hold on, love. It says my screen is paused. Why? Resume slideshow, resume screen. Is that
Yeah.
good?
yeah. If
Okay.
you hit slideshow, that should
Yeah.
take you. Yeah.
Slideshow from current screen. Here we go. We're back.
Okay.
We're
Yes,
back.
we're back.
Yay. So the only time we were talking about was in emergencies. We don't ask for consent. They treat to preserve life and limb, right? So what is exactly informed consent? So whenever someone offers you, a healthcare professional offers you treatment, they have to get from you something called informed consent in order for you to make a good decision. And that information, that when they're getting informed consent from you, they have to be able to tell you what your present condition is, what are the options that you have? What treatment options are available? They have to tell you what the risks, the benefits, the side effects are of those treatments. And they also have to be able to offer, if there is alternatives, tell you what those are. They tell you also, or they discuss with you also, what happens if you don't agree to that treatment? And if you have any questions, they're supposed to answer those questions about that proposed treatment. So that's what informed consent consists of, right? Having all that information so that you have a really good idea of what you need to understand and what you need to consent to. I learned this from, this is my favorite saying when I teach about healthcare consent. Remember that consent comes from a person, not a piece of paper, and it always relates to the specific plan or treatment for a specific situation or illness. And I had the pleasure of attending a number of sessions by Judith Wall, who we consider the guru of, at least I consider the guru of advanced care planning and healthcare consent. And that was the one thing that when she talked about that stuck in my head from the very time I heard it. So I like to make sure people understand that even though you've signed a piece of paper, that is not consent. Informed consent always comes from a person, either you or your substitute decision maker. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So when we say that you get consent from a capable person, what exactly does that mean? So if you are deemed to be incapable of giving a consent to make a healthcare decision, that means you can't say for yourself what needs to be done. That can be a result of either a disease process that affects your ability to understand and process information, for example, like dementia. It can be related to a treatment that may have affected your ability to understand and appreciate, or you can be unresponsive due to some kind of a brain injury, an induced coma, an accident, anything like that. That could constitute you being incapable. In Ontario, the term capacity or being able, capacity is having capability to make a decision, is a legal term, not a medical one. And it means that you can't make a decision for yourself. You can make a decision for yourself. And that having capacity is based on how complex that situation is that's being assessed. It is not task specific. Our capacity can fluctuate. If you think of people who have sundowners, for example, where in the morning, one of our patients can be very capable of making a decision, where as the day goes on, they get to be a little more confused or a little less able to understand what is going on. So that capacity fluctuates. And capacity is not dependent on whether you think a judgment is good or not, or it's not based on whether others agree with you or not. It reminds me of a case we had when I was in training in New York for my ethics degree. We had a gentleman who came in who was from the streets, had diabetes, his foot was gangrenous, and they kept telling him he had to have his foot amputated. And he kept saying, nope, not doing it. And of course, you know, they say, if you don't do it, you're going to die. And he said, nope, not doing it. Long story short, it was a very long, drawn out situation. They admitted him. They had psychologists, psychiatrists, healthcare workers, social workers, all trying to talk to him about this decision. And in the end, it turned out that he had a strong belief that if he were to lose that body part, he was not going to heaven. And so whether the healthcare professionals agreed with him or not, whether we thought it was a good decision wasn't the important part. They kept saying he didn't have capacity, but once they spoke to him and they understood that he understood what he was agreeing to, then it wasn't based on our decision whether that was a good decision or not, right? So capacity usually relates to two kinds of decision making. One is in respect to your property and finances, and the other decision is related to your personal health and care. And advanced care planning deals with this personal health aspect and care. It doesn't deal with property or finance. And in Ontario, a person is presumed capable of making healthcare decisions unless there is a reasonable ground to suspect that we are not able to make those decisions. So whether I walk into the ER dressed in a clown suit with a clown nose on and different color shoes and socks, that is not, people will look and say, oh, that person's probably doesn't know what they're doing. Well, the reality is, until there's reasonable grounds for deciding that he can't or she cannot understand and appreciate what they're doing, they are presumed capable of making a decision. So what does it mean to be capable? There are two things that have to be present when we're deciding someone is capable. You have to understand what is the information that's being presented to you in relation to the decision you're being asked to make. Right? So my physician is saying to me, Maria, we want to do surgery on you for this reason. Do I understand what's being told to me? Do I have the factual knowledge and information, and it makes sense to me? Do I understand the risks and benefits of what that's being said to me? So do I understand what's being said and as it applies to this decision? The other piece of capacity or being capable is that we have to appreciate what the consequences of the actions are. What is the consequence or risks associated with this if I accept the decision or if I don't accept the decision, accept the treatment? So do I have a realistic understanding of that? Can I show insight into what's being said to me? Do I know what my own limitations are? So example would be like if someone were someone's in hospital and they're being discharged and they're being told they're being discharged to long-term care, for example, and they aren't able to take care of themselves, they can't cook, they can't, they're bedridden, all of those things. And they're saying, no, I can live on my own. I'm fine to be home by myself. Do they appreciate and acknowledge what their limitations are? Can that person justify their choices, why they want to either agree with or disagree with the treatment? And does that person show that he or she can have a reasoned choice? Do you have a reason behind? So that example I gave you of the man who had the diabetic foot that had to be amputated, he showed the psychologist, psychiatrist, and ethics people that he had a reasoned choice as to why he was choosing not to have this done. So they had to agree that he had capacity and he was able to make his own decisions. So who decides whether I'm capable of making a decision or not? It is really the duty of that person, the healthcare professional, who's advising you of the treatment or offering the treatment to determine whether you're capable or not. And the conversation for consent has to be different for every treatment they're offering. So we may be able to make a decision about, say I'm in hospital and I have pain and they're offering pain medication. And I may have the capacity to say, yes, I want Tylenol for my headache, but I may not have the capacity to make a more complex decision that involves surgery or some other kind of treatment. Is this making sense to everybody? I keep talking, but I'm not sure. So what happens when you're found to be not able to make your own decisions? Well, the healthcare practitioner or professional will seek out somebody called the substitute decision maker. And the substitute decision maker is someone who has the legal authority to make particular types of decisions on your behalf when you are incapable or unable to speak for yourself. Let's talk about that for a little bit. So if you aren't capable, mentally capable of making a particular decision, then that person is really the interpreter of your wishes, beliefs, and your values. It's not that they say, I want, for example, if I'm the substitute decision maker for my mom, I don't say, I want my mom to have this, this, and this based on what I want for her. It's I'm interpreting what my mother would want in this particular situation. So my mom has told me time and time again, Mayor, if I lose my marbles, that's her term for being unable to make a decision. If I lose my marbles, I don't want you to prolong my life. So in my case, I would say, of course, I want my mom to be with me as long as I can. I would do everything to preserve her life. But my mom is saying, no, if this happens, I want this. So I can't voice what I want. I'm interpreting her understanding, belief, wishes, and values, right? So that substitute decision maker would need to give consent for treatment, admission to a long-term care facility, for example, or any other health-related decisions. So the substitute decision maker, I just noticed I talk a lot with my hands. Sorry, very Italian of me. The substitute decision maker is a person who, if you are incapable, and only when you're incapable of making decisions, speaks for you on your behalf. It only takes effect. They only have the ability to have that authority when and if you are incapable. If you can speak, if you can make decisions, then those decisions come from you and not your substitute decision maker. Okay. So there are requirements around who can be a substitute decision maker. You have to be mentally capable yourself. You have to be at least 16. You cannot be prohibited by court order or separation agreement, and you have to be willing and available to assume this responsibility. So for example, my husband is my substitute decision maker. If he had dementia or if he was unable to make decisions for himself, he obviously couldn't be my substitute decision maker. And there have been cases in terms of being willing and able. I remember a situation when I was in hospital. A couple had been married 62 years. They were a lovely couple. They looked like they had just gotten married. They were so in love. And the wife was asked to take, they said, we need to take your husband off of life support. And they explained the whole situation. And she couldn't make a decision. She kept putting off the decision, putting off decision. After a chat with her, we talked a little while, and she said, I've been with him 62 years. In my heart of hearts, if I say yes, take him off, I feel like I'm killing him. So she was neither willing or able to make that decision. So we asked her, is it okay if her son was also there? Is it okay if your son is the person who makes the decision? And she was quite agreeable to that. She said, let him make that decision. After it all happened, we talked to her and she said, I know it was the right choice, but I just couldn't say the words myself. So she wasn't willing or able to do that for him. So the role of the substitute decision maker is really, they have the legal authority to make decisions on your behalf. And those decisions, if I'm a substitute decision maker, I'm listening to that person. I've either known that person a long time or I know this person well. My decision is going to be based on what do I know about what they've said in previous conversations? What were their expressed wishes before this happened? What would they have wanted if they were capable of making the decision? Like in my mom's case, I know her well enough to know that if something happens, she would not want me to do X, Y, and Z. And then if I know nothing about it, right? If we've never had this discussion, and I can't tell you how many times that's happened in hospital, you ask someone, they're the substitute decision maker, you ask for a decision and they look at you and say, we've never talked about this. I have no idea what he or she wants. So what do we do then? Then that person makes a decision based on what is called the best interest of that person. And what does best interest look like? So best interest is, you ask yourself the question, what would that person want if he or she could decide for themselves? And determining best interest, you have to think about what are their values? What are their belief systems? is this treatment that they're offering likely to improve their condition or their well-being? Will it prevent them from getting worse? Will it reduce the rate or the extent with which their condition deteriorates? And what are the benefits of actually doing this treatment? So if we're looking at best interest and trying to make a decision, those are the kinds of things that we'd be looking at. So how do we get this person who's called a substitute decision maker? Well, there's a number of ways. They can be appointed legally, and we'll talk a little bit about that. There's an automatic list that is in the Healthcare Consent Act that tells us who would be the automatic person to make decisions for us should we be incapable of making them for ourselves. And what if we have nobody in our lives and somebody called the appointed public guardian and trustee would take that responsibility? So again, the role of the substitute decision maker is really to help decide what you would want if you were able to speak for yourself, not what they would want, but what you would want. And in the good sense of government and the law, everyone in Ontario has an automatic substitute decision maker, even if we don't appoint one legally. That is encoded in the law, and their job is really to talk to your team and decide what would be in line with your values and interests in your belief systems, and what treatment would change your condition for the better. So the law, in the law, you will see this list of substitute decision maker hierarchy. And the whole section in yellow, these are legally appointed substitute decision makers. So you can have a court-appointed guardian, an attorney for personal care, and somebody who's been appointed by a group called the Consent and Capacity Board. These are all legally appointed people who have some kind of documentation that shows they are making decisions for you. Say I don't have this legally appointed person, what happens then? So then the next five, the next group here, the ones in green, it will be your spouse or your partner, and a partner can be anybody you have a relationship with that lasts more than a year, that's a year or more. It can be a friend that lives with you, a family member, that a cousin, someone like that. It could be a person who as a spouse or partner, obviously. So you have to have a relationship. So, renting the room downstairs to the guy who lives there, just because they live in the same domicile doesn't mean that they're the person's going to make a decision for you. You have to have a relationship with them. If you don't have a spouse or your partner, then parents or children will be the next group of people that could make a decision on your behalf. So if my spouse or partner has died and I have 3 grown children, they would be able to make decisions on my behalf if I was in hospital. Or if I had parents and no spouse or partner, my parents would make that decision. Then there's the parent with right of access. So if I have custody of my child, I would be the person who could make a decision for that child. Then our siblings, and hopefully you get along with all your siblings, because if they are the people making decisions, you want to have a good relationship with them, obviously. And then any other relative by marriage, adoption, or blood. Nieces, nephews, cousins, anybody who could provide information and make decisions for you. Now you'll notice that on some of the lines there's multiple people. So if I have 3 children or 5 children, all of those children would have to be in agreement about the consent to the treatment or withdrawal of treatment. So everybody would have to agree. And those are the kinds of problems we would see in hospital often. You have a family member in ICU on a ventilator. You have, in one case, we had 8 children. 4 wanted her off the ventilator. 4 wanted her to continue being on the ventilator. And there was this back and forth about agreement about who makes the decision and how do we make that decision. So it's important that we that you know that if people are, there's a number of people on that automatic side, that list, they would be in agreement on how it would go forward. And then finally, there's the public guardian and trustee. If we have absolutely no one in our lives that could take this role on in terms of family, then someone is appointed to do that for us. And that person may or may not know us, but what they would do is make the decision for your treatment or your healthcare based on what is in the best interest. What would a reasonable person do in that situation to improve health or life, right? I get this question all the time. What's the difference between a personal a power of attorney for personal care and a substitute decision maker. So all of these people on this list are types of substitute decision makers. A power of attorney for personal care is just a legally appointed one. There is a document that says this person named here is the person making a decision. So the power of attorney for personal care, if you have a family member who would be the automatic person and say, you know, maybe they're not the best person to make a decision for you, then you might want to consider actually appointing someone who you know will make a decision in that would coincide with your values and beliefs. So in a situation that I personally had, my uncle who was dying of cancer, he didn't want any treatment, and yet his wife wanted him to have treatment, and he knew that she wouldn't be making a decision based on his best interest as far as he was concerned or his wishes, but on her own wishes. And so he appointed me the power of attorney for personal care, and I was able to make those decisions for him, knowing that he felt his wife, it would be too overwhelming for his wife because she would choose to keep him as long as she could. So let's talk real quick about power of attorney for personal care. Again, I am not a lawyer. This is just general information I want to provide to you. So in Ontario, we have two main types of power of attorneys. One is for personal care, and that's the one advanced care planning deals with. And the second is power of attorney for property. That's what we deal with who pays your bills, who takes care of your home issues, who has control over your finances. So the one that advanced care planning deals with is this power of attorney for personal care, sorry. So what is this document? It is a written document that legally appoints a specific person who acts on your behalf only if you are incapable of doing so. It can also contain directions for future wishes. It can, anything related to your personal care. It can be prepared with or without a lawyer. I've done a lot of talks for seniors groups, and one of the things I hear a lot is from seniors is, I can't afford to go to see a lawyer. It's too expensive. So the beauty of a power of attorney for personal care form is that you can have it filled out without a lawyer. It must be in writing, it's signed and witnessed by two people. And the form is actually online, and I will, and that's what the front of it looks like. But here is, when I say that there's a government form that you can fill out and have, you know, it has instructions to it. Everyone is like, oh my God, I can't fill out another government form. They're so complicated. I don't want to do that. So I bring up the form, and here is the form, and we fill it out for Mickey Mouse. So if Mickey Mouse can fill out a form for power of attorney for care, you surely can do that as well. And we go through and we explain, you put your name, you identify who you want to act as your power of attorney. In this case, Mickey had Minnie and Donald Duck. And there's a section that decides, do they make decisions together, or can they make decisions independently? And so we show them what this means and how it gets filled out. In case Minnie and Donald decide they're going to elope and never come back and leave Mickey all up on his own, you can have a third person in here who is an alternative to the two up there. And then the instructions, you can include an advanced care plan telling them exactly what you want and don't want. And then you sign it, you put your address, and then you have to have two witnesses. In Mickey's case, he chose Cinderella and Olive Oyl, and they date it and sign it in the presence of Mickey together. So it can be as simple as that. If you have a very complicated situation, I would certainly recommend seeing a lawyer to have those completed. There are some stipulations around completing a power of attorney for personal care. The witnesses that sign have to be, they can't be the person you're giving the power of attorney to. It can't be the spouse or partner of that person. It can't be your own spouse, partner, or child. They have to be 18 years old, and they can't have guardianship over any property that you have. I'm going through this very quickly, and it's kind of simplified, but I think you get the gist of what it might be.
Maria,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. I just am mindful of time. Maybe if everyone's okay, we can take a 5-minute break and
Absolutely.
then carry on.
And we're at the next section. So yeah, that's the end of the healthcare consent part.
If
If
you have any questions for Maria, we can put them in the chat now, and maybe Maria can answer them and I can read them out loud.
Oh, there's a whole bunch. Awesome. So we're taking a break, right?
Yeah, we can restart at 10:30 if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, absolutely, love.
Just to reconfirm, we are going to take a 4-minute stretch break, bio break, a refill on our warm beverages because it is cold outside. And I'm going to exit and re-enter because I think I created the echo chamber. Sawar will let me back in, I hope.
We will let you back in. Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay, everyone, please take a few minutes break, stretch your legs, grab a drink. We'll come back. We'll give a few minutes for questions in response to the first presentation, and then we'll go straight into advanced care planning.